Hello everyone, this is KenBroTech from KenBroTech and welcome back to my channel. So in this video, we are going to build a web application in Django and we are going to render an HTML view into PDF. And this is what I mean. So in this application, in this table, we have some names of staff in the system and we have positions over here. So for instance, we have technician, manager and a supervisor, and the names are showing up over here. Now when I click on this button, which is view payslip, the page I'm directed to is a PDF template of some kind of information we have in our system. So here we have KenBroTech payslip showing up over here, and the name is Peter White. Peter White has an email address which is being picked up from the database. The position for Peter White is a technician. Peter White has worked for 18 hours and the gross salary for Peter White is 1,800. So this is what we are going to look at. And right inside the Django administration backend, as you can see, we have this model showing up over here. We have staff. Let me click on home. So clearly we have staff. Now within the staff app, we have the salary rates model and we also have the staff model. So when I click on staff, now these are the entries I have in my database. I can add a new staff. So let me add Richard. And for the surname, I'm going to say Johnson. So I have Richard Johnson over here, and this is going to be Richard's email address. So richard@gmail.com. And the number of hours worked, I'm going to say 19. And Richard, as you can see over here, is a manager. So if I'm to save this, now for the gross salary, I need not to input any data over here because it's going to be calculated automatically for me. So when I click on save, we now have Richard being saved within our system. And when I come back here to come and refresh, we have Richard Johnson over here. When I click on this button, we see this being rendered out in a PDF format for us. So this is more or less the payslip of Richard. Let me come back here once again and go into the salary rate. So clearly these are the three positions we have over here: a technician, a supervisor and a manager, and these are all linked to some basic salary. And that's exactly why, or that's how the calculation is being done over here. So the number of hours will be multiplied by the corresponding value for the manager, the rates actually. So the rate for a manager is 200. So as you can see, for Richard, who is a manager, multiplying 200 by 19, we are going to get 3,800 for his gross salary. So this is how we are going to work our way around it. Now for the purpose of this video, we are going to use a third-party application to help us, and that's actually what I have over here. And the name of the third-party application is XHTML to PDF. It's a very straightforward Python library that we can easily install. We are going to look at the installation process. Now if you are new to my channel, once again welcome. I make videos on web development primarily using technology such as Python and Django to be precise, and there are more videos coming up very soon. I'll highly recommend, if you are a complete beginner, check out on this course I have over here, and that's the Django inventory management application I built. I think it has about 22 videos over here. Then there are some other videos you can check on, and also have a blog project, and there are some quite interesting videos coming out very soon. So without much ado, let's jump straight into action. So inside VS Code, I've created my Django project and I've created an app. So the name of the project is payslip. As you can see over here, we have settings.py in here, and I have the app dashboard created for us. All right. So I've done some few things over here, and that's why I highly recommend you check up on some of these videos I have over here, because I take a deep dive into the very basic. Okay, so in this video, I assume you know quite about Django, Django app, Django projects, and it is pretty much very simple, but because of time, I quickly want to put things together very quickly. So inside my payslip projects, inside settings.py, I have registered this app inside installed apps. Now I have it as dashboard.apps.dashboard config. So that's the first thing I did over here. And obviously the next thing I did was to set up my templates folder. So I've connected it to this template folder I created over here. Now inside of this template folder, I have a dashboard subfolder within templates, and dashboard is housing index.html. As you can see, index.html is empty, and I have payslip.html, which is also empty. Then I have partials over here. Let me close this. So within partials, I have base.html over here. Now I've grabbed the Bootstrap CDN, which is something I do in almost all my videos. So definitely when you check up on the previous videos, you're going to see what I'm referring to. Then I also have the Bootstrap navbar setup over here. All right, so I'm going to start this project running. So I'll type in Python manage.py and I'll do run server. So the project or the application has started, so I need to do a control and click on this link, and here we are. This is our default page, and we are going to work our way through this. So I'll quickly go into the dashboard app and go into my views.py and create a function-based view over here. So I'm going to call this index, and index is going to take in a request, and we are going to render, sorry, we are going to return render, and the first parameter you pass in here is the request and the name of the template. So the template is located in dashboard, inside the dashboard folder. Then I'm having index.html, and that's exactly what we have over here. Inside the dashboard folder, you have index.html. all right, so I'll save this and let me collapse this, and inside of my dashboard app, I need to create a urls.py over here. So for my urls.py, I'm going to run an import. So I'm going to say from Django.urls, I want to import path. Then the next thing I would want to do is I want to import from the current directory, I want to import views. Then I'll create in a URL patterns over here. So this is going to be a list, and I'm going to specify all the paths I'm going to route in here. So in here I'm going to do views.index, and I'm going to give it a name for the URL, which I have a convention that I use. So I'm saying dashboard-index, and dashboard is actually like the name of the app dash the name of the template, which is index. All right, this is my own convention. All right, so I'll put in a trailing comma over here. So now we have the view and the corresponding URL over here. One last thing that we need to do is to go into our payslip project folder and go into urls.py, the project URLs, and come and specify or inform our project that we want to have some routing over here. So I'm going to import include over here. We've seen this a couple of times with my other videos, and I'm going to have the path. So within this path, I'm going to call the include method, and what include is going to do for me is going to include all the dashboard URLs. Okay, so all the URL I have in dashboard, I want to include them over here. And let me quickly come back here into my template folder inside index, and perhaps type in something over here. So let's do an h3 and let's say Ken. So this is going to render Ken in my browser. So when I refresh, now as you can see, we have Ken over here. So we are going to work based off this. So we now know that everything is working perfectly. So the next thing to do is to modify the template I have in here. And in order to do so, I'm just going to remember I have inside my partials base.html, I have everything almost set up over here. So I just have to include this block tag over here. So I'll do a Control-C and I'll come in here inside index. First of all, I need to extend this from the base.html. So I'm going to say extends, and I'll say partials /base.html. all right, then I'll need to paste this over here. So now I have this bootstrap setup working for me. I also want to have the block title, so I'm going to do block title over here, and I'm going to say home page or home, and I'll do end block. All right, so the block title is basically the title I have over here. So I'm quickly going to set everything up over here. So I'm going to call the container class, and before I continue, let me include the nav.html over here. So I'll put in a template tag, and I'm going to say include, and I'll specify partials over here /nav.html. all right, now there's a reason why I'm putting nav.html inside of this block content, okay, and that's because I don't want it to appear inside of the payslip. So when I do just this and come back here to come and refresh, we're going to see the nav bar display over here. All right, so what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to have a role over here, and inside this row I'm going to have a call, and I'll do MD8, and for MD8 I want an offset over here, so I'll do offset, and I'll do MD2 over here. All right, so let me put out a margin top of 4 here as well. All right, so I'm going to have the table over here, so I'm quickly going to go into Bootstrap. So there's a link, getbootstrap.com. Click on all releases. I'm using the version 4.6, and I'm going to type in here table. So I'm going to grab a template over here. All right, so this is a template I use, so I'm going to copy this, and I'll come in here and just paste this over here like this. So when I save this and come back here to come and refresh, I have this table showing up over here. All right, we are going to do some modifications to it as we move along. So now we have a working template. Now let's go and quickly handle things within our models, and our models are actually going to be our database where we are going to save data. So inside my dashboard app folder, I'm going to go into models.py, and I'm going to specify, or I'm going to create 2 classes or 2 models. So the first one I'm going to create is going to be what I'll call grade, and grade is going to inherit from models.model, and I'll specify the attributes over here. So the first attribute is going to be position. So position is going to be models.charField, and I'm going to specify a max length, which is mandatory when you are using the charField over here. And the next one is going to be basic salary. So I'll do basic underscore salary, and basic salary is going to be models dot, and this time around I'm going to choose positive integer field. Remember, this is a salary that cannot be negative, so I'm going to say a default, or I'm going to specify a default over here, and the default is going to be 0. All right, so this is the first class. The second class I'm going to create is going to be staff, and this is also going to inherit from models.model, and the first attribute is going to be first name, so first underscore name, and this is going to be models.charField, and I'm going to specify a max length of 100 over here. Then I'm also going to have last name, so I'm just going to do a shift alt down arrow key to copy and paste this over here and change this to last name. Then the next attribute I want is the email, so the email is going to be models.email field, and I'll leave it like this over here. Now I also need the hours, so the hours is going to be models dot, then I also have positive integer field because you can only work in positive hours. Then here too I'm going to give a default of 0. Then we are going to do a little bit of calculations over here, but before we do the calculation, we are going to have a gross salary. the gross salary by default should be models dot positive integer field, and also I'm going to specify a default which is going to be equal to 0. All right, so this is going to make it work, and there are some few things I would want to show you over here. Now this gross salary, so let's have like a very short formula over here, and let me just put this in a comment. So for our gross salary is going to be equal to our basic salary times the number of hours we've worked. So it's going to be basic salary multiplied by the number of hours the person has worked. Okay, so for this to work, we don't have to hard code the gross salary in here. We have to do the calculation. So we are going to write or override the save method. So I'm going to call a function over here, and within this save method, within the staff class, I'm going to pass in self as the first parameter, and I'm going to have the args and keyword arguments over here. So that's going to be the quarks. And first of all, let me just return, and I'm going to return super dot save, and inside save I'm going to pass in the args and the keyword arguments, so quarks, like this. Now before saving, this is where the calculation comes in. So I'm going to say self dot gross salary is going to be equal to, we are going to implement this formula over here, it's going to be equal to, and let me just put this in this bracket over here. I'm going to say self dot hours, okay, multiplied by self dot, and this time around we are going to use some kind of a relationship over here. And before we handle that relationship, remember this, every employer, every staff, okay, every person on the staff should have some kind of a link with the grid. Okay, so let me put out another option over here. So I'll say grid status. So grid status is now going to be equal to models dot, and we are going to use a foreign key relationship over here, and we are going to link it up with the grid model, or the grid class actually. So this is going to link up to grid, and I'm going to specify on delete, and I'll say models dot cascade. All right, so we are in business now. Now what then we need to do is, because we have the grid status over here, which is now linking up to grid, we can now do, or in order to have access to the basic salary, we can now say we are going to pass through grid, okay, or the grid status dots, and we are going to have access to the basic salary over here. So I'm going to do a dot basic underscore salary. All right, and this is going to work out very good for us. So now let me put out a string representation over here. So I'll do a def double underscore str double underscore, and I'll pass in self, and I'll return self dot position over here. Then I'll also return, I'll do a def str, and I'll pass in self, and I'll return self dot, this time around let me do first name. All right, so we have this working out over here for us. Let me open up a new terminal and run python manage.py make migrations. So our models have been migrated, okay, and we finally have to do python manage.py migrate. So we are through with the migration. Now let me create a super user so that you can have access to the admin panel. So python manage .py, and I'll do create super user. So I'm going to type in admin, and my password is admin@gmail.com, and my password, this is my email address. Sorry, I've typed in my password, and I'll accept this as yes. All right, so I'll come in here and I'll do call this and do a /admin to access the admin panel. So I'll type in my username and my password. Now when I log in, I don't have my model showing up over here because I haven't registered them yet. So inside my dashboard, I'll go into admin.py, and this is where I need to register my model. So first of all, I'm going to say from the current models, I want to import staff, and I also want to import the grid. All right, so I'll do admin.site.register, and I want to register staff over here, and I'll copy this, and I would also want to register grid. All right, now I would also want to, so just by doing this, it's going to pop up over here. So when I refresh, we now have grids and stuff over here. We can now start creating new things over here. All right, so first of all, let's create a position, and the first one I remember was manager, and the basic salary is 200. So when I click on save, I now have manager 200 somewhere. All right, then we can now come here and create a staff. So I'll click on this. The first name is Kenneth, and I'll come in here to type in the last name as Bruni, and the email address is going to be kbruni123@gmail.com, and the number of hours worked, I'm going to say 17 hours, and I need to specify the grid status, which is going to be based on a grid I created. Okay, so I'm going to say manager. So this calculation is going to be handled for me. I need not to type it over here. So when I click on save, and I have it over here, but then in the final video or in the demonstration of the project, I created some kind of a table over here, and that's going to be very simple. I'm just going to create in a class over here. So I'm going to call this staff admin. So staff admin is going to inherit from admin.moduleadmin, and what I need to do over here is to specify a list display. So within the list display, this is going to be a list or a tuple, and the items I want to display off, let me check this, off staff is actually going to be the first name, last name, and the gross salary. So I'm going to come in here and type in first name, and bear in mind this is case sensitive, so exactly how we typed it over here. I'm also going to have last name, and finally I'm going to have gross underscore salary. Okay, so in order to make this work, I need to pass in this new class that I've created over here. So when I save this and now come back here to come and refresh, we are now seeing the first name, last name, and the gross salary showing up over here. We are going to do same for the other one, which is grid. So for grid, I'm just going to come in here and create a class. Sorry. And the class is going to be grid admin. And once again, we are going to inherit from models. We are going to inherit from admin dot model admin. And for the list display, I'm going to have the position and the basic salary. So I'm going to say position, and I'll say basic underscore salary over here. Then finally I need to copy this, Ctrl+C, and pass it as an argument in here. So when I refresh and come back to grids, I have this grid showing up over here. So now let's continue and create another one for supervisor. So I have supervisor over here, and the basic salary for a supervisor is 150. So I'll save this. I have this over here. Let me create another one for technician, and the basic salary for technician is 110. So I'll save this. So this is what we have in our database. Now when we have a staff, or upon creating a staff, let's say we have Richard Davison over here, and this is going to be Richard's email address. So I'll do richard@gmail.com, and the number of hours Richard has worked is 20 hours, and the status over here, remember this is just what we created, so we now have this showing up over here. So let's say Richard is a supervisor. Now when I click on save, that calculation will be done for me. Okay, remember, let me show you. The supervisor's rate is 150. Okay, and Richard has worked for 20 hours, so 20 times 150 is giving us 3,000. All right, so that's exactly what we are seeing over here. Okay, so now that we have this set up, let's see how we can render this inside our view over here. So I'm quickly going to go into my views of Pi over here, and I'm going to run an import. So I'm going to bring that model over here. So I'm going to say from the current models, I want to import, and I want to import staff. So I'll create in a query set over here. So staff is going to be equal to the staff model, that's the capital S dot objects dot all. So this query set is going to grab every object we have in the staff model and put it in this variable for me. So I'm going to have a context over here, and this context is going to be a dictionary. So the key I'm going to use eventually in my template is going to be staff, and the value is going to be staff over here. In order to access this context, I'll just have to copy this and pass it over here as an extra parameter. So what this basically means is the query set I have over here is now accessible in index.html. So now let's go into our templates, into dashboard, and inside index.html we are going to run a loop over here. But in order to, before I do so, let me clear things up over here. And the first parameter I'm going to have over here is going to be position. That's going to be the table head, and I'm going to have name over here. Then I think what I had over here was payslip. All right, and I'm pretty much going to clear everything over here except for just one row. So I definitely don't need all of these. All right, so when I save this and I come back here to come and refresh, this is exactly what I want. Okay, I'm more of a visual person, so anytime I do anything, I would want to have a look at it before proceeding to the next stage, and it actually helps a lot. So within this, okay, we are going to run a for loop over here. So we are going to use the template tag, and I'm going to say for staff in staff, and immediately after doing some of these things, you just have to come and end it over here. So I'll do N4. Now I'm going to put out the position over here. So I'm going to say staff dot position. All right, so this is going to grab the position and put it there for me, and this is going to be the name. But for the name, I'm going to put out a span tag over here, and I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to say staff dot first underscore name. So that's going to be the first name, and I'm going to continue and put another span tag over here, and inside of this I'm also going to do staff dot last underscore name. All right, then finally this is going to be a button which you are going to click and have access to the payslip. So I'm just going to put out a link tag over here. For now I'm going to leave it empty, and I'll type in payslip. Oh no, I'll type in view payslip. All right, so inside view payslip, let me just put out some bootstrap classes over here. So I'll do a btn dash primary, and I'll do btn dash sm. All right, so just after doing this, when I come back here to come and refresh, we have this showing up over here. I think the position is not coming through, and let's go and check in our model what we had over here. So the position is actually okay. So over here too, there's going to be that kind of child parent relationship over here. So we can't just access position through staff because it's not a direct attribute over here. Okay, but then we can access position through the grade status. So you can do staff.grade_status.position, and that's why we are not seeing this over here. So we are supposed to do staff.grade_status.position. All right, so when I do it this way and come and refresh, now we have this over here. Now when I click on this, we are supposed to see the payslip. Hello. Okay, so all right, so we are now going to work with this. Okay, now before we do so, let's come into our views.py and come and create the payslip view. So I'm going to call this payslip. All right, so payslip is going to take in a request, and beyond the request, we are also going to pass in a primary key over here, because as you can see, when I click on this, I want to have access to a particular user, okay, which is Kenneth Bruni in this case. So that unique identifier I'm going to use to identify Kenneth Bruni in my database is going to be the primary key, or my ID. So when I do this, I'll first of all have to return a template over here. Later on, we are going to modify some few things over here. Then I'll pass in a request, and the name of the template, this is going to be inside dashboard / and I'll call this payslip.html. all right, later on we are going to work with the context. So let me pass in the context dictionary over here, context, and let me leave it empty for now. All right, so we are going to create a URL route for this particular view we have over here, and that's very simple. We come in here, and I'm going to call the path method over here, and the path is going to be payslip, okay, / and I'm going to do views.payslip, and the name of the route is going to be dashboard. Okay, this is going to be a string, so dashboard - payslip dashboard. All right, so after doing this, I think we are in business. Now we need to come into the dashboard folder and create that HTML template. So I'll do payslip.html, and it says payslip. Okay, is payslip a file or folder? Payslip already exists. Okay, so I think I need to change the name over here. Let me change this to staff_payslip, okay, .html. So I need to come and change inside of my views.html. I just need to come and change this to staff_payslip.html. all right, I think the rest of it is going to work just fine. So when I do this, I now need to come inside of the payslip. Okay, inside of the payslip template, I can just start rendering in data over here. So for instance, I can type in an H1, okay, and I can do, and before I do so, let's put out some kind of query set over here. So I'm going to say staff, and this is going to be equal to, I'm going to call the staff model over here. So the query set is going to be staff.objects.get. I want to get a particular item, and I'm going to get it through the ID, and the ID is going to be the primary key. all right, so I don't know why this is giving me this. All right, so I'll save this, and what I need to do now is to, inside the context dictionary, I need to pass in stuff over here, the query sets. All right, so now that I have stuff over here, I can now have access to stuff inside my payslip. Okay, so I can now do stuff dot, let's say, first name. All right, so when I do this, I need to go into index.html, and inside my href, render the URL over here. So I'll do a URL, and let me just come and copy this. So this dashboard payslip. So I'll do a Control-C, and I'll paste this over here. And since we are looping through stuff over here, I can do stuff.id. All right. So after saving this, when I come back to refresh, it says we have an issue over here. It says dashboard is looking out for an extra argument over here, and I think inside my URL patterns I left out something over here, and that's very true because I'm supposed to add in the primary key over here. So I'm going to put out the angle brackets, and I'm going to do int and pass in the primary key over here. All right, so when I come back and come and refresh, we don't seem to have any problem. When I click on this, we now see, or we are supposed to see something over here. Okay, and I think the template is not being rendered out properly. All right, so in order to work our way through this, this is probably, let's go to stuff.html, stuff payslip. I thought, okay, so this was payslip.html. Okay, so I already had payslip.html over here. Okay, so let me just cut this, okay, and put this over here, and let me close this, and well, let me delete this as well. Okay, so when I save this and come back over here and come and refresh, we now see Richard being displayed over here because that's the first name. This is Kenneth. So when I click on this, Kenneth is being displayed over here. Now it is actually this that we want to have, that kind of PDF being displayed over here instead of the HTML view, and that's going to lead us to the Python library I made mention of, and that's X HTML to PDF. It's pretty much straightforward. When you come to this link, you just have to run a pip install the package. I already have it installed, but then if you're a first timer, you only need to copy this as I've done, come into your terminal and paste it over here. So when I click on this for it to run, it's going to tell me that requirement is already satisfied, as you can see right over here. So now that the installation is through, I also need to come in here and click on the usage. So for usage, there are basically two ways we can use it as far as the Python implementation is concerned. And we have it when you want to use it as a standalone in your project. Then fortunately for us, if you want to use it in a Django application, we have something tailored for that particular purpose, and we are going to make good use of what we have over here. So clearly, let's copy these imports over here and go into our views.py. So inside our views.py, let's paste these imports over here. There are a couple, one or two that I don't think we are going to use. For instance, I don't think we are going to use OS. I also don't think we are going to use settings. HTTP response we are going to use. We are also going to use this get templates method over here and a couple of others, but then it doesn't hurt if we leave them over here. So we go back, and this is just one way of doing it, and there's another way over here. This is what we are actually going to explore. So let me just copy this whole thing over here, Control-C, and just beneath this, let me just paste this over here, and we are going to modify some few things over here. So let me open this up so that we see exactly what's happening. So now we can see that it is calling a function over here, and it is having a template path. Okay, we are just going to modify what we have in here to kind of mimic or understand what is happening over here. So first of all, let me just copy these two line of codes. So I'll do a Control C and I'll paste it right over here. So the template path is actually the link to my template, and let me just show you that one. So this is the template path. The template path is dashboard and staff_payslip.html. So I'm just going to clear this one off, and I'm going to have dashboard /staff_payslip.html. This is the template path. All right. Then the next one is going to be the context. Okay. And over here, as you can see, I have my context showing up over here. So I also don't need their default context. Then let me close this up and come here again. And as you can see, there's a comment over here. It says create a Django response object and specify content type as PDF. Okay. So this is the response objects, and that's the reason why we have the HTTP response imported over here. And the content type is running everything as PDF. You don't have to change this. And we also have the response, and there are some few things over here. Later we are going to modify some few things. So I'll just copy these two lines of codes, and I'll do a Control C over here, and just under the context I'll come and paste this over here. All right, so after pasting this, then we also have what we need to pay attention over here, and that's find a template and render it. So this is going to find a template, and we just have to copy these two lines of codes. So I'll do a Control C, and I'll bring them beneath this as well. Then finally, we'll also need to copy this whole thing over here, because this is going to create the actual PDF. Okay, so the pizza_status is going to take in pizza, and pizza has already been imported over here, and this is actually coming in from the XHTML to PDF package itself. Okay, all right, so after copying that, we just have to come in here and come and paste them over here. Now technically we don't need this. Okay, this link callback is coming as a result of the original setup it has over here. So there's a function link callback, and it is rendering quite a number of things. That's why link callback is showing up over here. So in our example, we are going to get rid of this link callback for now. I mean, we are not going to use it, and clearly we don't need to render our template over here, because as you can see, the template has been called over here in this particular variable template, and we are rendering the template using the render method over here. Okay, so I'll also need to get rid of this momentarily. And finally, I don't need this because I have what I need to render my HTML. So I'll clear this as well. So now when I save this, and let me reset everything back to let me go back to my terminal. Everything is working perfectly. All right, so when I come back to come and refresh, you don't seem to have any problem. But interestingly, when I click on this, we see that something has been downloaded over here for us. So when I click on this, and as you can see, we have Kenneth over here. Previously, this is what we were rendering inside of the HTML template. All right, so I'm going to go back over here and modify some few things over here. So the main trick of what is being downloaded is actually in this attachments as we have over here. So if you decide to get rid of this attachment over here, okay, let me just clear this one. If you decide to get rid of this attachment over here and save, when I come back here to come and refresh, when I click on, let's say, Richard Davison, when I click on this, it's not going to render it in the PDF format for me. Now I think this is more a better solution, because over here I can decide to download it or I can choose not to. Okay, so when I decide to download it, now I have it downloaded and I can have access to it anytime. So I think this is better in a way. We can actually do it for both, okay, where you can click to download or you can click to view. But in this case, we are saying that view payslip. So definitely I just want to view payslip. If I want to download, that's another thing altogether. Good. So now let's build out, what we want to see over here. And that's going to be very simple. We are going to go into the stuff, okay, over here. And before I render this in here, there's one thing I would want to do. So this is going to be simple HTML that we are going to put over here to style things in here. So I'm going to have an H1 and I'm going to say KenBroTech payslip. So inside of KenBroTech payslip, I'm going to put out the inline styling method over here. So I'm going to have a color and of red, and I'm going to have a font size, and for font size I'm going to say 20 pixels. So when I save this, and let me put out a horizontal rule over here. So when I save this and come back here and come and refresh, we now see this KenBroTech payslip, and at least the font has become a little bit bigger than it used to be. So over here I'm going to say name, and after first name I also need the last name. So I'm going to cut this, and I'm actually going to put this in a span tag. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have the span tag over here too, and I'm going to say last name. All right, so I'll save this, and I'll also need the email address. So I'll once again put this in an H1 tag again, and I'll do email, and the email is going to be what I have over here. So it's going to be staff.email, and I would also want to have the hours. So I'm going to have hours showing up over here. So this is going to be staff.hours. All right, then I think, let me see exactly what I have here. Okay, so everything is showing up over here. Then I think just before hours I had position. Okay, I think after name was position. Yeah, so let me have position over here. So let me just duplicate this and change this over here. So this is going to be staff dot I think, let me go back into model. So it's going to be staff dot grade status dot position. So staff dot grade status dot position. All right, so I'll save this, and when I refresh, all right, we have manager over here, and finally the gross salary. So I'm going to put out the horizontal rule over here, and I'm just going to have an H1, and inside of this let's have the gross salary. So for gross salary is going to be staff dot gross underscore salary. So I'll save this, and when I refresh, we now have gross salary over here. Let me end things up with another horizontal rule. All right, so this is basically how we create our payslip over here. Now this is a perfect example for other use cases like an invoice or a receipt, or trying to integrate some of these things into a Django application. All right, so if you find this tutorial very interesting, there are a couple of ways you can help me grow my channel. Kindly subscribe to KenBroTech, and don't forget to hit on the notification button so that anytime I release a video, you'll be duly notified. Also, share this video with friends and family who find this content very useful. At KenBroTech, we say learn programming. You can do it. Don't forget to ask any question or pass any comments if you do have one. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.